Office of Student Learning and Institutional Assessment. I'm also a professor of communication at SFA. At SFA, we've been doing assessment of student work for the core using the modified LEAP rubrics. We modified them for our institution. Groups of faculty modified them for our institution for about a year and almost 2 years now institutionally. This past spring, we only collected work for student learning and we only collected work, for oral communication. We normally have been on a schedule of collecting 3 objectives, but we're changing that. We're in the process of changing that, and it will be alternating 2 and 1 objective a semester. So that's changing up a little bit for us. That's my story.
Okay, Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Locke. I'm at Weatherford College, which is a community college west of Fort Worth in Weatherford, Texas. You can hear me okay, I assume?
Yes.
Okay, good. I am actually a faculty member and our QEP director, and I'm the primary contact, but I'm not our director of assessment. He was unable to join us today. His name is Lee Butler, so he can speak to that more fully. He and I just attended the rubric calibration in Kansas City. I know that our QEP rubric that we've been using for the last 5 years was derived from a few different LEAP rubrics, but we haven't used the LEAP rubrics really in their kind of wholesale form until our introduction to this. So I think we're going to be undergoing some changes, but we have used other versions, I think, for core assessment as well, but Lee could speak to that better than I can. So we're pretty new, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, we had a couple of faculty attend the multi-state collaborative calibration sessions in Kansas City as well, and just got through the process the last week and a half, 2 weeks of getting all of our sampled artifacts submitted to that system. And that was interesting, to say the least. And then someone else is logging in. I'm going to kind of wait and see if we can catch them before we move along. And it's UT Arlington. Is that Julie and Lorraine or one or the other?
Okay, unmute. Can you hear us, Chris?
Yes, we can. We were just doing introductions, and you're up next.
Okay, we're starting with Lorraine Phillips and following with 2 others. Melissa Brown, Julie Gray.
Okay, we were also talking a little bit about where we were institutionally with the LEAP-based assessment or general education outcomes assessment. If you want to talk a little bit about that at UTA.
We had submitted our plan to the state, and we, like everyone else, it was approved, and now we're trying to assess authentically and for a core curriculum and core curriculum objectives that were implemented in fall of 2014. I think we're all sort of in the same boat there. And so we're seeking as many opportunities as we can to use the value rubrics on courses that are in the core curriculum. When our core curriculum courses got approved, they had something that they called signature assignments. I can't say that I'm positive that our signature assignments and signature assignments at AAC and U's definition are exactly the same, but the point is that there are particular assignments in this approved syllabi that are supposed to ask students to demonstrate these core objectives, and then we basically seek those on a 3-year we have a sort of a 3-year rotating schedule of getting to each outcome within each discipline within the core curriculum, seeking these artifacts, and then conducting scoring sessions using the value rubrics and faculty panels. Does that help?
No, it does. It does. And that it's kind of similar to what the others of us have said too, that we're, looking at, we're all kind of on a rotating schedule, either a 2-year cycle or 3-year cycle. Okay. Well, looking at kind of the plans for the summer, over the next, 4 months if you count May, given that we're on the last day of the month. Really kind of the two things going on during the summer. One is Larry and I, from our perspective, are going to be working on the logistics for the fall submissions, so that when we get to the fall, that we will have all the logistics and the instruction documents on how to submit the documents to the live text system that we're going to be using. And so he and I will be working through that this summer. And as I mentioned earlier, we've participated at San Jac in the multi-state collaborative. So we have samples that we've already collected and have already submitted to the multi-state collaborative system. So that's going to kind of give us a test bed of samples and whatnot to work through that process. Now, for the participating institutions, the two things for the summer are the RBR institutional approval and getting that through the process at your local institutions, and having that submitted back to us at LEAP Texas by the middle of August. And then the second thing is, and we're going to talk about this today, is start working on testing the sampling methods to make sure that we can get where we need to go in terms of collecting the samples. Because I know that for us, participating in the multi-state collaborative was not altogether an unexpected process for us, but it was still kind of an eye-opening to actually go through that process of collecting documents in the way that we had to collect them, given the sampling requirements for the multi-state collaborative. So in terms of institutional approval, or RB, we had the webinar that kind of focused exclusively on that topic back at the end of April, talking about kind of all the different elements of RB, the fact that the way we designed the project, we kind of expect this to be, if it goes through RB, to be an exempt status and perhaps be able to go through expedited review. But then also for those institutions that don't have an RB, we talked about an institutional approval. We've made those resources available out on the website. It's on this page, and then it's under Development Hub and Texas Assessment Collaborative. There's this RBR institutional approval web archive that has all of those resources that are there at the bottom of that image on the right. But what we wanted to do for today is just kind of open up the conversation. It's a little bit easier in kind of this more informal setting with many fewer attendees to kind of discuss any specific questions that anybody may have around the RB or institutional approval process at your institution. So any questions, concerns, discussion that we need to have about RB or institutional approval?
This is Sarah. I don't have any questions.
Have y'all already started that process at Weatherford? Is that something that you're going to wait until a little bit later in the summer?
We have not started it yet.
Okay. Do y'all have an RB or an informal RB of any sort, or is it primarily going to be institutional approval?
We do have an IRB, yes.
And then
Chris, at UT Arlington, I've started preparing the proposal, and it'll be submitted later this summer.
Okay. Any concerns about that, or is it just, do you feel like that the information that we provided was helpful to the point that it's kind of hopeful that it's going to kind of go through on rails maybe? Well, as much as anything goes through on rails through IRB.
Yeah, I've been over to speak with them once already, face-to-face, and I think we've got a pretty clear path mapped out.
Outstanding. Okay. Larry, have y'all started working on this at Stephen F. Austin, or is it one of those things? Well, you said, I think you had said before that you didn't even expect it necessarily to go through IRB.
I have to have a conversation with the provost about whether or not we really need to go through IRB. Under the former provost, we would not have had to have gone through IRB, but we changed provosts in the fall, and it'll just depend on what his viewpoint is on whether or not he's comfortable making that decision or not.
Right. Yeah, and normally I think something like this might go through just kind of institutional approval for us, but I went ahead with multi-state collaborative, and for our participation in that project, I put that through IRB. It really is a matter of just course and kind of coverage to make sure that we're covering all our bases, and as a matter of exercise to kind of inform what we're doing around this project. So I haven't, at San Jac, we haven't done the IRB for the Texas Assessment Collaborative yet, but we have already put the multi-state collaborative through, and it was approved with a few clarifications and stuff. So I don't expect too much more work at San Jac, at least from my end, for us to get the IRB done. It's just a matter of kind of copying and pasting for us at this point. So, okay, well, it's good to hear. It sounds like everybody's got a good grasp on this. So move along to the sampling methods, and because I know and we've actually already, Larry and I have gotten one email from University of North Texas that expressed some concerns about this, and most of the concern that I've heard, and I think Lorraine, you and Larry and I have talked about this as well, concern is about primarily around that third row there, where we're talking about drawing a sample from students with 42 to 72 completed semester credit hours. There was, I believe it was University of North Texas, when they were looking at trying to draw samples for the multi-state collaborative, which the multi-state collaborative says 75% degree completion. So for universities, that would be 90 or more hours completed. And from what I understood, University of North Texas could not pull, because they were trying to pull from core courses only. They could not get a sample from core courses of students that had 90 or more hours. To me, it sounded like the majority of their students that were in the core did not yet have 90 hours yet. And so that kind of constrained the samples that they were able to get to. So I know that third row is a concern. It's been a topic of discussion. So given kind of the parameters for the sampling that we're looking at, which is different from the multi-state collaborative because we're looking at 42 to 72 semester credit hours completed, are there any questions or concerns or discussion about your institution's ability to draw a sample that meets these parameters?
This is Sarah at Weatherford College, and since we are a community college, I do have some concerns about that, especially since only 10 can be from a single course or faculty member. Can you tell me how you have addressed that since you're also a community college?
That actually may be a matter of size, because for us, that's not a problem at all.
Okay.
Right. But we also have within the core, we have in the fall, we have about 1,600 sections across the entire core curriculum.
Okay.
So Chris,
no, go ahead.
This is G. 3 and 4, just like Sarah, are a big concern for us. And no more than 10, as well as the 72 or 42 hours. And the reason is we don't sample from every core curriculum class. We select a few courses and evaluate all the samples from one class. So we're not cherry picking from a particular group at all. So I may have 150 from a single course that I'm evaluating. So just 10 is really a problem.
And that a problem grows when we're dealing with number 3 related to the completed semester credit hours of 75%. So then we really start to lose our ability to participate.
Right. Well, the 75 to 100% core complete is kind of a question mark. That I don't know is necessarily hard and fast. The 42 to 72, the rationale behind that is that if universities and community colleges are both sampling from groups of students that have 42 to 72 hours completed, semester credit hours, then that kind of means that we're comparing apples to apples, even though we're across two different types of institutions. And that's in contrast to the multi-state collaborative, which if they say 75%, and they do 75% toward degree completion, then community colleges are sampling from students with 45 to 60 hours, and universities are sampling from students with 90 to 120 hours, which is two pretty significantly different groups of students. So I think the 42 to 72 hours, there might even be a little bit of play there in terms of 42 to 75, if we needed to expand that range a little bit. But I don't think we want to expand it so much so that we're getting students that have, right now we're already talking about if a student at the top end versus a student at the bottom end, you're already talking about a 2-semester difference between those two students, assuming full-time attendance. So I don't know that we want to expand it too much. Now, the no more than 10 from a single course, that is something that we drew on the multi-state collaborative methods. So there's probably, some room for adjusting that as well. The rationale, as I understood it behind that, is that it's, not having an entire sample, because we're only talking about 75 to 100 documents from each institution. And the idea is to not have, only 2 course sections from an institution represented. And so that 10 from a single course or single faculty member, the hope there is that if, we're trying to sample from an institution that maybe have 10 course sections.
Can I ask a question? This is Sarah.
Sure.
When it says no more than 10 from a single course, does that mean a class or does that mean course number? So let's say it's American Lit 2328. Does that mean no more than 10 from American Lit 2328, even if different faculty members have different sections?
No, it's course faculty combination. So if there's 2 different faculty teaching 2328, then you could have 10 from each section.
Okay.
Who was that talking? Oh. Who was that just talking?
That was me, but you go ahead, Lorraine.
Who asked the question previous to my
Sarah Locke from Weatherford College.
Ah.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Sarah. It's a meet and greet. Lorraine.
Hi.
Well, I think that clarification is an important one, Chris, when you say no more than course / faculty. A conservative interpretation of that might be course. Faculty is another matter. So, if we're talking about one particular outcome, which is communication, right?
Correct.
And I'm going to have a bunch of samples, or excuse me, a bunch of different faculty members teaching that English course, I might be able to come closer to the requirement of 10. And I guess we just have to dig in and see. And in terms of
because course and class mean 2 different things to me. Like a class is one particular instance of that course, but course to me means American Lit 2328.
Oh, that's a great point. Maybe we should change it to no more than 10 from a single class faculty, and that would be very clarifying for people.
Or section faculty.
Right.
Yes, that would work.
Yeah, and generally the hope there is that, as long as there's an effort at each institution to get a variety, samples from a variety of course sections, that's probably good enough for that parameter. If it ends up being 12 from a single section with one faculty member, that's not a deal breaker, of course. It's just a matter of if you're trying to sample from an institution, you don't want 50 papers from one section and 50 papers from another section, and then that's it, because the entirety of your sample is from, you know, 2 different course sections with 2 different faculty.
Chris,
Okay.
Chris,
As I gather from what we're talking about, we're all sampling from core courses, correct?
Now, there's not a limitation that says you have to sample from core courses. We had talked about that previously.
No, there's not a limitation, but what I'm saying is from practicality, at this point, all of us that are participating would be sampling from core courses. Is that correct?
That's
Yeah.
correct from the UT Arlington perspective.
So that, Chris, that may have an impact on the third line there. You're really going to throw that 75 to 100% core complete out the window anyway, by and large. Because if we're sampling from core courses, it's going to be difficult for any of us to come up with students that are 75 to 100% core complete, I would say.
Yeah, we can, well, especially at the university level, for us at community colleges, I think with a 75 to 100% core complete, honestly, is almost the entire degree, given that there's usually only 12 to 15 hours that are not core. So no, I think that we'll end up focusing on the 42 to 72 semester credit hours completed. And so,
and I can tell you that we've already done some trials on our student work that we collected for written communication, and we can satisfy that easily.
okay,
Chris,
yes.
Chris, at UT Arlington, that'll be more difficult. And I think on number 4, we can do 5, probably single course per faculty, or single course, single faculty, but getting close to 10
Class, right?
10 classes, it's going to be hard. That'll be a real challenge.
Well, back to the item 3, I kind of have a similar concern with Larry, and one of the other concerns from our perspective is the only students that would be taking a core course, which is where we pull our artifacts, would be students that have delayed their core curriculum, which are usually not our most stellar students. So now we're kind of dealing with a sort of a selection issue where we're going to be putting in our lesser performing students in this to satisfy the requirement. So that part does concern me a little bit.
Why would, let's see, if we're talking about, why would it be the students that have delayed their core curriculum?
Well, usually those aren't our stellar students.
Right.
But believe we have people that, you know, skip around and then they finally go, oh crap, I have to take blah blah course, and they go back after they're, you know, realizing that they're closer to graduation and to take it. And so that's why I have that concern.
Is that given? Is that given the courses that you currently sample from would have that?
I'm saying the students that could satisfy the requirement of number 3 are going to be our students that delayed the core because they don't like the courses in the core, and then they delay it until their later years, and they would be the ones that would be satisfying our requirement for number 3.
No, now the requirement for number 3.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
So I'll give you an example, Chris. Someone who's not good in math but has to take a statistics course will put that off trying to get their GPA high enough to get into their major. And then at the end of their career here at UT Arlington, they'll go, oh my goodness, I have to take that stats course that I put off. Or I'm a terrible public speaker and I didn't want to take business communication, but now I have to. But that's not my strength.
Right.
And
But those students would not meet that requirement because they're likely to have more than 72 completed semester credit hours.
So it's a restriction. So on item 3, the sample drawn from students, you're going to restrict it lower to?
Right, the 42 to 72 completed semester credit hours.
I don't know if we have that. I think we're going to struggle with that.
Okay, Lorraine, let me ask you this. What parameter would make that easier for you to draw a sample?
Level. Sophomore.
I'd do better if you could let me have level.
Level, what do you mean?
Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, not year, but actual level. Yeah, classification.
So what about second?
The problem, that classification, our classification is different from one institution to the other.
Well, they're probably awfully close for freshman, sophomore, junior, senior.
Well,
This is Sarah, isn't that a de facto classification, sophomore, junior? I mean, isn't 42 to 72 hours?
42 to 72 generally would be second semester sophomore, first semester junior.
Right. So, I mean, it basically is a classification.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, pretty close. Well, and one of the things that we have in mind is we know we've got some concerns about it. So the goal for this summer would be to kind of make a dry run at it and see, all right, if we need to sample from these courses, looking at the students in those courses, how many semester credit hours do they generally have, and find out if you can get a number of samples. So empirically find out whether or not you can meet that sampling method, and then if we need to revise it, then we can. We just went through this process, and the sampling method is a lot more work than what it should be for us because of the system that we use. But we were able to get through it and actually do it. I questioned whether or not we could, but the coordinator in my office does some pretty amazing work and was able to make it work for Multi-State Collaborative. So we've kind of been through that process. So the idea for the summer would be to make a dry run at the sampling to see if you can get the sample that we're talking about.
And maybe, this is Sarah again at Weatherford, the distinction is making sure we understand that it's the 42 to 72 completed hours, not the 75 to 100% core complete that the MSC uses. Correct.
Well, and actually the requirement that MSC uses isn't 75 to 100% core complete. They say 75 to 100% degree completion.
Degree.
Right. Which would create the concerns that Lorraine and Julie or was it Melissa, is that right, was talking about in terms of if it's 75% degree completion, then in a university you end up getting students in the core that have put off their core, which does create a selection bias because it's not necessarily the strongest students that do that. So yeah, and I'll send out a clarification and kind of modify some of this whenever I send this out and make this available to reflect some of the changes that we're talking about. I'll get rid of the 75 to 100% core complete, and then I'll make that change to no more than 10 from a single section / faculty.
Sounds good.
Okay. So does that sound workable if you haven't already had a chance to kind of test and see whether or not these sampling parameters are going to allow you to get a sample? Is doing that this summer feasible and workable?
I think so.
Lorraine? Lorraine?
Hey, we're here. We're talking through what this would look like for us, and so we have not listened to your last 3 minutes, which is bad for us. I know. Meet and greet. Yeah. But we're kind of saying a couple of things. One is a student couldn't be called a junior here without having the 60. So if 42 to 60 or 42 to 72 means we can submit people with 60, then we're okay. If as long as we're only submitting 75.
Yeah, first semester juniors.
So in that case, we probably could come up with 75 people that were at 60 or more. Now, what that does with how we talk about number 3, 42 to 72, we'd be in that category, right?
Yes.
If we had the 60.
Yes.
So then I'm talking myself back into number 3. And then on number 4, I think it's really good to say no more than 8 to 10 from a single class, or the language you were using, Chris, the section.
Section.
Because we want the lower. We want more flexibility since we sample smaller numbers.
Right.
Sample smaller number of courses, then we need the number of courses to be smaller.
Right.
Not the number of, he's saying no more than 10 samples.
Oh. So wait a second. Can you clarify number 4? We're having a little bit of a debate. Does it mean no more than 10 from a single, okay, 10 classes or
10 essays.
10 essays?
No more than 10 samples from a single section faculty member.
Classes or essays?
No more than 10 samples.
Classes or essays? Define sample. We need a little more clarification.
Documents. He's talking about documents. You can't have more than 10 documents from a particular class.
Okay. So we'd like to see that maybe say, if we're talking about the number 10 representing the number of classes backslash sections, we would want the number smaller. But if we're talking about the number of documents, then we'd like to see that number be bigger.
Bigger and what, document? So
Yes.
you want 15?
So if we said no more than, 20 from a single class, no more than 20 documents, probably we need to define what the number 10 is representing. So no more than 10 documents, but could we say 15 is where I'm going with it, from a single class faculty or single section faculty?
For pieces of student work.
Yes.
So that would mean with 75, we would be at least getting 5 courses samples. And from each course, we'd have at least or around 15 documents that represent student work to evaluate.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
If we could change the 10 to 15, that would be a big help if we're talking about documents. And see, all this time I thought we were talking about sections, so good thing Julie's here.
Because we have fewer courses to get this material.
Because our courses are bigger.
And we have fewer of them
Yeah.
on a grand
Yeah.
scale.
In terms of access, we have
Can we see that screen again, Chris?
Yes. Let's see. Where'd it go? All right. Can you see it again?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I made the changes that we were talking about.
That's awesome. Thank you. I think we can do it. Hopefully.
Okay, at SFA, juniors are 60 to 89 hours.
60 to 89.
Sophomores, 30 to 59.
Right. It's essentially second semester sophomores, first semester juniors.
But that doesn't mean they do it.
I guess one question, Lorraine brought this up earlier. Is that necessary?
The semester credit hours,
Yeah.
I think it is that if we're trying to look at, kind of across interinstitutionally, how students are doing, I think there needs to be some constraints on which types of students are included in that sample.
But I'm just curious if the concept is that the course taught them the essential skill, then it doesn't really matter at what point in their college career they've taken the course, because they should have mastered it.
Attainment is what we're after.
It's not, well, and it's not necessarily the course, did the course teach them, is it do, you know, where they, I mean, if we don't have any constraints on this, we arguably could end up with students that at the beginning of the semester had 9 hours completed. And so if we don't place a constraint on that, then we could potentially have students from the university that have 80 plus hours completed versus students at a community college that have 9 hours completed. And if that happens, that's not apples to apples in any shape, form, or fashion, because it's not about one course, it's about their progression through the core. So we need to kind of capture students that are near the same point of their academic career.
Yeah, I understand.
So now I think that the 42 to 72 is a better and more cohesive way to go than maybe what I'm seeing at the multi-state collaborative, because with the 75% degree completion, the types of the students at their academic career for community colleges is going to be radically different than, you know, they're going to have half the number of courses that some of the students from the universities are going to have. And so that 42 to 72 at least kind of gets students that have had, though different experiences at two different institutions, have had the same opportunities in terms of semester credit hours.
You know, Chris, this is Lorraine, this conversation's been good for me because it's helped me to interpret these parameters a little bit better. One of the things that I think I just learned is that I misunderstood a couple of the parameters. I like this more.
Yeah.
And so when you're dealing with the results, what are you going to do to related to community college versus university? Are we going to be separating results?
And that's the other reason why we're doing this, because we don't have to separate the results because all the students are in aggregate together.
Okay. That gets us started.
So how do they get?
Chris, could you take out the A that's in parentheses on number 3?
Oh, yep. Is the screen back up?
Oh, it's still.
I'm seeing the screen.
It is an AS.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Thanks.
It's still going to be high percentages of juniors is really down.
Okay, so the next steps, the two things we've talked about. We talked about RBR institutional approval. I think we're all on track to have that completed by August 15th. And we'll start, if we haven't already, then start looking at kind of testing the sampling method, make sure we can get there within those constraints. And then I'll send out this revised PowerPoint and everything. I'm going to make it all available through Dropbox links so that this is only available to the group that's working on this, the folks that met here today, and then U of H Victoria and University of North Texas that weren't able to make it today.
Hey, Chris, moving back from the August 15th, when do IRBs meet? Like, ours meets once a month over the summer, so I've targeted the July meeting for my approval, but it may be important to note for some other schools, I've been at institutions where they don't meet at all over the summer and first meet in September. Have we, maybe we should talk to our participants and make sure that that August 15th isn't prohibitive in terms of IRB summer schedules.
Well, and if IRB summer schedules run into that, then we could make an exception where needed, probably September 15th. The main thing is that we have the IRB or institutional approval in before there's any submission of any artifacts from the institution to the live text system that we're going to be using.
Okay.
UNT already has, Julie's already gone through the process and got approval.
Yeah, so that would leave U of H Victoria is the only other one that we'd have to check with to see what their dates are.
What about that, Sharon? Oh, is Sharon on?
No, she wasn't able to make it today.
Oh.
And Mrs. Sarah in Weatherford, I'll have to make sure and check with our assessment coordinator. I mean, our assessment director.
But yeah, like I said, that's not going to be, the August 15th isn't, that's the preferred in order to get this, just get that stuff done and out of the way. But we've got a little bit of slush time because the key date there is whenever an institution starts submitting artifacts from them to us.
Hey, Chris, I see we have 15 minutes. Can you talk about some of the technical challenges? And you were mentioning earlier issues with the MSC, the Multi-State Collaborative, and the submission of work. Can you talk about what those challenges were?
For us, primarily, it was because the system we use locally to collect those artifacts is very, very course-driven rather than student-driven. So we can't tell we're not able to tell our system to go and find samples from students that meet these criteria. We have to tell it to sample from courses. So what we had to do was we had to collect from a very broad range of courses and then manually go back in and dig through and find the students we needed. That was the primary issue, but it wasn't anything related to the system that MSC was using or inherent to the process itself. It was a constraint of the system that we use, Blackboard Outcomes, in order to collect the data, to collect the samples of student work. That was.
Can you describe what it was like making the submission using the MSC technology?
Not personally. I kind of saw it over the shoulder a little bit of the coordinator in our office because he's the one that did it primarily. That I'm going to be walking back through that process with him and kind of comparing notes as Larry and I start working with live text. But I also don't know, I'm hesitant to describe too much of the MSC process because it's a different platform than what we're going to be using.
Okay.
It didn't make the coordinator in our office scream and cuss, if that's enough.
That's good news.
Yeah, Blackboard Outcomes made him do that, but not the submission to the online system didn't.
Does this particular coordinator have more technical experience or more curricular experience?
Very technical.
Oh, okay.
As I understand what we'll be using with live text, should be fairly simple. It's just each institution will upload their sample.
Yes. Yeah, the one thing that one of the things that we're going to be doing too is that there's going to be some need, and we've got to work. Well, this is the logistics that I was talking about earlier that Larry and I have to work through this summer, of having some additional demographic data around each student. For example, like the number of credit hours completed, and then also some additional conversations that we're going to end up having about what other demographic data to include. If we work from the multi-state collaborative model, they include kind of your standard demographic data set associated with each document that's uploaded, so that they can, if they want to, disaggregate or look at the data by that demographic data.
Hey, Chris, this is Julie. Is the number of credit hours a continuous variable?
Yes.
Okay, that might be a problem.
Oh.
Because we don't have the number, we're going to have the level.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if all you have is level, then if you can constrain that to second semester sophomore, first semester junior, that's.
We can go that far.
If you can get that far, that's honestly really the intent of.
We can only do sophomore, junior, senior, Chris. That's all we can do.
Okay.
So we can only give you a range.
Yeah, if all you can do is sophomore, junior, and not second semester sophomore, first semester junior, you can do what you can do, and honestly, limiting it to sophomore, juniors probably still keeps us within a reasonable constraint to keep the students similar.
Okay. Also, this is a meet and greet. Who was caller one? I heard Sarah talk.
It is, no, it's Sarah, UT Arlington, me, and Larry.
Oh, there is no caller one?
No, not that I'm aware of, unless somebody's lurking and I'm not seeing them in the attendee list.
There, on our list, on our attendee list, there's a caller 01.
And who else?
No, that's it.
Who else?
Or is that you, Chris? No, you're up there.
You tell us who you see.
We see Chris Duke, caller 1, Larry King, Sarah Locke, and UT Arlington.
Oh, no, I don't know who caller 1 is.
I don't see caller 1.
It shows up on mine too.
Caller 1, are you out there?
Although whenever Sarah talks, it says unknown at the bottom versus when other people talk, it says the name that we have there. So maybe somehow Sarah has linked in as caller 1 as well. Maybe you just got down power.
Maybe you're powerful, Sarah.
Maybe. That may
Well,
be.
actually, Sarah, did you call in on the
I
phone?
did.
Yeah, that's what it is. And she's logged in on the web.
Yeah, I logged in on the web on Go. No, I didn't. I clicked on the link and then I called in on the phone.
Yeah, that caller 1 and Sarah are one and the same.
Okay.
And Sarah, what's your role at Weatherford?
I'm the QEP director and the writing center director and an English faculty member.
Oh, neat. Nice to meet you, Sarah, and welcome to our crazy crew.
Thank you.
Oh, and then one other question. Is anybody else going to be going to the SAC COC Summer Institute in Grapevine?
Costs too much.
Yeah, I'm not going.
Are you sponsoring anyone, Chris? Because I'm available.
Yeah, no, we're the class of 19 for the Reaffirmation, so we've got our orientation process and stuff at the SAC's annual meeting starts. So we're starting to ramp up for that process.
Chris, can I make another little request? I mean, I love this meet and greet concept, and I love meeting and greeting because it's the extrovert in me anyway. But can you, when you send out the message, can you include more than just the lead person at each institution and maybe have like the assessment people too? I mean, like for example, I wouldn't want my provost to get it, but the people that I've listed as evaluators, I would have wanted them to get it. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. Well, one of the things that we could do is it would be easier if I find out from each institution who all they want to get this information, and then we can start sending it out to that distribution list. The reason I sent it out to the primary contact this time was to kind of defer to that group and that they could forward so that we're not just blasting everybody in their institution, including their faculty and whatnot, with the emails. So I may send out an email to get information back, and then I may send out the contact list and get folks to tell us who all should be on the list.
I would love that because I failed to forward mine appropriately because I wasn't really thinking, I guess. I can't say I didn't know because I saw your message, but I just didn't sit and study the recipients until later. And then I was like, oh, I should have told people. And, you know, I'm doing it 10 minutes before the meeting.
So who all at UT Arlington should get the email? You, Julie, Melissa? Is there anyone else?
Yeah. Anytime they come to me like this calling for a webinar, it'd be good if they could go to Julie and Melissa. Our provost doesn't want it, but definitely Julie and Melissa and I do.
Right. The other two folks from UT Arlington that were listed were Dr. Kavanaugh and Dr. Johnsrud.
Right. Dr. Johnsrud is our provost, so she doesn't want it, and it doesn't matter with Kavanaugh. You can invite him, but he won't come. But Julie and Melissa, for sure.
Okay. And then, Sarah, is there other folks at Weatherford that just on a day-to-day basis you'd like to get the emails that are going out?
Yes, Lee Butler. although his first name is actually Charles, so it's under C Butler at Weatherford or wc.edu.
Okay. All right. And then Larry, anyone else at Stephen F. Austin?
I'll get you a list.
Okay. Okay. Well, then I'll get the same information from UH Victoria and North Texas, and then we should be good to go. And then also, I'm still interested. We've got 4 universities, but I'm still interested in finding another couple of community colleges. So, Sarah, if you have any ideas or colleagues to reach out to kind of promote and see if we can't get a couple more colleges on board, that would be beneficial as well.
I sent you something from Tampa Corpus Christi, Larry and Chris. No, it was just a Larry. Were you able to follow up with the Tampa Corpus Christi people for this?
Me, I have not yet because I was out for surgery and today's the first day I'm back.
We are very glad you're back, Larry. I hope you feel good.
I'm doing pretty good, thank you.
All right. Well, Tampa Corpus Christi expressed a little bit of interest and gave us two faculty member names to follow up on. So I just wanted to see if we could connect.
Okay. All right. Well, we are coming up on time, and of course, you've always got mine and Larry's contact information if or as needed.
Are you going to post this to the website, Chris?
No, because it's a smaller work group and a smaller conversation. I'm going to put it on the Leap Texas Dropbox account, and then I'm going to send out links to the presentation materials.
Actually, I would be grateful because I want people to observe our process, and plus I need it when I do the progress reports. I use the website.
Okay.
If it doesn't happen online, it doesn't happen. That's what we've been telling our funders.
Okay.
So will you put it on our website?
Yeah, I can do that.
All right, awesome.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, enjoyed the conversation, and at the very least, we'll see you again on, I think it's June 21st.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.